The night air was cold, and the city did not seem to care. Cars rushed past, their headlights flashing like brief sparks of attention before disappearing again. On the edge of the sidewalk, near a closed shop with broken lights, a young girl stood still. She tried not to cry loudly, but her chest felt heavy, and her tears refused to stop. She kept wiping her face with the sleeve of her thin jacket, hoping no one would notice. Still, anyone who looked closely could see she was lost. She had been standing there for a long time. At first, she believed someone would stop. Maybe a kind woman would ask if she was okay, or a guard would help her find a safe place. But minutes turned into hours. People walked by, some looking straight ahead, others glancing at her, and then quickly looking away. A few slowed down, but no one asked a single question. The street was busy, yet she felt completely alone. The small bag in her hand felt heavier than it should have been. Inside were a few clothes, an old notebook, and a phone with no battery left. That bag was all she had now. Earlier that day, she still had a place to sleep. Now, she had nothing but the hard ground under her feet and the dark sky above her head. Her legs hurt from standing, but she was afraid to sit. Sitting would make it feel too real, like this was not temporary. Like this was her life now. She had not planned for this to happen. No one ever does. The problem started with an argument that grew louder than it should have. Words were said that could not be taken back. Doors were slammed. In the end, she was told to leave. Not tomorrow, not later, but right then. She remembered standing by the door, hoping someone would stop her, hoping the anger would cool down. It never did. The door closed, and the lock clicked. That sound stayed in her head as she stood on the street. Memories played again and again in her mind. She thought about the small room she used to sleep in, the old fan that made noise all night, and the cracked mirror on the wall. None of it was perfect, but it was home. Now, even those small things felt precious. Her throat tightened as she realized she might never see that place again. The city felt different at night. During the day, it was loud and full of life. At night, it felt cold and distant. The lights were bright, but they did not bring warmth. The noise of cars and people made her feel smaller, like she did not belong here. She hugged herself, trying to stay warm, trying to feel safe. Fear slowly replaced shock. She did not know where to go or what to do next. She thought about calling someone, but there was no one left to call. Friends were far away, and she did not want to worry them. She did not want to admit how bad things had become. Pride mixed with fear, keeping her silent. She told herself she would figure something out by morning, but deep down, she knew the night would be long. A group of people passed by laughing, their voices full of joy. She watched them disappear around the corner and wondered how life could feel so different for others at the same moment. Just a few steps away, people were happy, and here she was, standing on the edge of breaking apart. She felt invisible, like she did not exist in their world. Her tears fell faster now. She tried to stop them, but her body felt tired of being strong. She whispered to herself that everything would be okay, though she did not believe it. Her stomach growled, reminding her she had not eaten since morning. She ignored it, focusing instead on staying calm. Panic would only make things worse. Across the street, a car slowed down because of traffic. Its windows were dark, and the vehicle looked expensive. She did not notice it at first. She was staring at the ground, watching her tears drop onto the pavement. But something made her look up. Maybe it was the quiet sound of the engine, or maybe it was just a feeling. Inside the car, a man sat in the back seat, tired after a long day. His mind was full of numbers, meetings, and decisions that affected thousands of people. He was used to moving through life quickly, always thinking about the next goal. The city outside the window was just a blur to him. Something he had seen 1,000 times before. As the car moved slowly, his eyes fell on the girl standing alone. At first, he thought she was just waiting for someone. Then he noticed her face. The tears, the way her shoulders were shaking, the small bag in her hand. Something about her did not feel normal. She looked scared, not careless. Lost, not irresponsible. He looked away for a moment, telling himself it was none of his business. He had seen many things in his life, many people in trouble. He could not stop every time. But as the car moved forward, a strange feeling stayed with him. It reminded him of something he could not quite name. Maybe it was a memory, or maybe it was guilt. The car moved ahead, but his thoughts stayed behind. He found himself looking back through the window. The girl was still there, still crying, still alone. The streetlight above her flickered, making her look even more fragile. He felt a tightness in his chest, a feeling he was not used to during business nights. He thought about his own life, about how protected he had always been. Even during hard times, he never stood alone on a street with nowhere to go. He realized how easily he could drive past and forget her face by morning. That thought bothered him more than he expected. The driver waited for instructions, eyes on the road. The man hesitated, then spoke softly, asking the driver to slow down. The car almost stopped now. The driver looked surprised but did not question it. The man stared at the girl, trying to understand what had brought her here. What kind of pain could leave someone standing like that? The girl noticed the car stopping and felt a rush of fear. Her heart beat faster. She took a step back, unsure whether this was danger or help. She had been warned her whole life to be careful, especially at night. She held her bag tighter, ready to run if she needed to. The man opened the door and stepped out. He did not wear anything flashy, but his presence was calm and confident. He kept a respectful distance, not wanting to scare her. The noise of the street seemed to fade for a moment, leaving only the sound of her breathing and his quiet footsteps. She looked at him, her eyes red and tired. She did not speak. Words felt too heavy. He could see the fear in her face and slowed his steps even more. He did not ask personal questions. He simply asked if she was okay and if she needed help. His voice was steady, without pressure. The girl wanted to answer, but her voice did not come out. She shook her head slightly, tears falling again. Part of her wanted to run away. Another part of her wanted to collapse and let someone take care of things just for a moment. She had been strong for too long. He waited patiently. He did not rush her. He understood that trust did not come easily, especially not at night, and not from a stranger. He told her she did not have to explain everything. He only wanted to make sure she was safe. For the first time that night, she felt something change inside her. Not hope, not yet, but a small pause in her fear. Someone had finally stopped. Someone had finally seen her. She wiped her face again, took a deep breath, and tried to speak. Her words came slowly, broken and unsure. She said she had nowhere to go. She said she was scared. She did not say much more. She did not need to. Her eyes said the rest. The man listened carefully, every word sinking deep into his mind. He did not interrupt. He did not judge. As he listened, he knew this moment was important. He did not know why their paths had crossed, but he knew one thing for sure. This was not just another night, and for the girl standing on the street. This was the first moment since the door had closed behind her that she felt her life might not be over after all. The man waited a few steps away, keeping a careful distance. He did not want to make her feel trapped, and he did not want to scare her more than she already was. The city noise continued around them, but he seemed to block it out. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes and the tension in her shoulders. He had never met her before, but at that moment, she mattered more than anything else in the world outside that sidewalk. He spoke again. Slowly, carefully, not too loud, not too soft. He told her she did not have to speak if she did not want to, that she could just breathe, that someone was there to help her. He said this not because it was impressive, not because he wanted to look good, but because he felt it. He knew fear like hers, though he had never been in her exact place. He had faced pressure, loneliness, and loss, but the feeling of being invisible, unwanted, and alone on a street at night was something else entirely. She shivered, hugging herself tighter. Her voice trembled as she tried to speak, but only a small sound came out. He did not push. He only nodded, giving her the time she needed. Then, slowly, she spoke in broken words, telling him she had nowhere to go. She admitted that she was scared, that she had been sent out of the place she once called home. Each word sounded tiny, fragile, but he could hear the weight behind it. Each word was a story of loss, of fear, of life appending itself in a single day. He did not ask for details about why she had been sent away. He did not ask for explanations. That was not important. What mattered was that she was standing there, alone, vulnerable, and in need of someone to care. He told her she could come with him, that he could take her somewhere safe. He did not promise anything more than safety, food, and a place to rest. Those things mattered more than anything else right then. Her eyes widened. She had never been offered kindness like this by a stranger before. It was confusing. She wanted to run away, but she could not. Her legs felt weak, but a small part of her knew this was an opportunity she could not ignore. The street had been empty of hope until this moment. He smiled gently, reassuring her with his calm presence. Slowly, she nodded, still unsure, still afraid. He gave her time, taking a few steps back to show there was no rush. Finally, she walked toward him, clutching her small bag tightly. Every step was heavy, every breath a struggle, but she moved forward. She could feel this strange mix of fear and relief in her chest. Relief that someone cared, fear of trusting too quickly. They reached the car, and he opened the door for her. She hesitated, glancing back at the street, at the lights, at the people who had ignored her all night. The city seemed bigger and lonelier than ever before. But she turned back and stepped inside. The car smelled faintly of leather and warmth. It felt strange, almost unreal after the cold night. She sank into the seat, exhausted, and let herself relax a little. He sat across from her, observing quietly. He did not ask too many questions. He did not rush. He only asked if she was hungry or thirsty. She shook her head, still too timid to respond fully. She had not eaten in hours, and her stomach protested quietly. He nodded, understanding, and told her they would stop soon to get something to eat. He kept his voice calm, friendly, and gentle. It was different from the way most people spoke to her. It was not rushed, not demanding, not judgmental. It was human. As they drove through the streets, she looked out of the window. Everything seemed to move faster than her mind. Cars, lights, people, and buildings, all blurred together. She tried to take in the world around her, but her thoughts kept returning to the fear and pain of the past hours. It was overwhelming. She wanted to cry again, but she held back. The feeling of being seen, of being cared for, gave her a small strength she had not felt in a long time. The man watched her carefully. He noticed the small details, the way her hands shook, the way she kept pulling her jacket tighter, the tiredness in her eyes. He realized that for someone so young, she had endured more than most people face in years. He felt a strange mix of sadness and responsibility. He did not know why life had been so unfair to her, but he knew he could help now. They reached a small, quiet place where she could rest for the night. It was a modest hotel, nothing fancy, but safe and clean. He made sure the staff treated her kindly without making her feel embarrassed or dependent. She felt a strange comfort in the room. The bed was soft, the lights were gentle, and the air was warm. For the first time that night, she could breathe fully without fear. He did not leave immediately. He stayed to make sure she had everything she needed. He brought food and water, making sure she ate even a little. She hesitated at first, but hunger overcame pride. She took small bites, grateful for the simple kindness. He watched quietly, letting her eat in peace, giving her space, yet offering presence. That was all she needed right then, someone to be there without pressure or judgment. She finally spoke more freely, telling him in small phrases about the day, about the argument that had sent her out, about the fear and hopelessness she had felt. He listened without interrupting, without making assumptions. Every detail mattered because it was her story, and he wanted to understand. He nodded, occasionally saying small words of reassurance. The room felt quiet, safe, and respectful, a sharp contrast to the harshness of the street outside. She asked questions too, small ones, about him, about why he stopped. He did not boast about who he was or what he did. He only said that everyone deserved a chance to be safe and seen. That was enough for her to understand. She did not need to know more. It was his action that mattered more than his identity. Time passed slowly. She started to feel more comfortable. The fear that had wrapped her heart in tight chains began to loosen just a little. She realized that it was okay to rest, okay to trust in small ways. For a young girl who had faced rejection and loneliness, this was powerful. She realized that people could still be kind, even strangers, and that her life could change. He stayed until he was sure she was settled. He gave her small advice, not instructions, just gentle guidance things, like making sure she slept well, kept her phone charged when possible, and trusted herself to make decisions. He left her with the sense that she was not completely alone, that someone cared about her well-being. It was not just a moment of rescue. It was a moment of human connection. That night she fell asleep feeling safer than she had in days. The fear of being ignored or mistreated did not vanish, but it lessened. Someone had seen her, listened to her, and acted to help. For the first time, she believed that maybe life could offer more than hardship. Maybe, just maybe, her future could be different. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Cars passed, lights flickered, people moved on. But inside that quiet hotel room, a small miracle had happened. A young girl who had felt invisible now felt acknowledged, cared for, and human again. And the man who had stopped did not see himself as a hero. He only saw a person in need and acted with kindness. That was enough to change everything, even if they both did not yet realize it. The girl woke up slowly, the morning sunlight streaming through the curtains. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the city outside. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The panic and fear that had filled the previous night were still close, but slightly softened by the warmth and safety of the small hotel room. She sat up, feeling her body ached from standing and walking the previous night. She looked around and saw the bed was made neatly, a small breakfast tray set by the side with some food and water. She had never been treated like this before. It was strange to feel cared for without being asked for anything in return. Her hands shook as she reached for the food. She took a small bite, her stomach growling from hunger. Every mouthful made her feel a little stronger, a little more alive. She ate slowly, savoring the taste of something warm and safe. As she ate, her mind wandered to the events that had led her here. It all felt like a dream, a strange mix of fear, sadness, and sudden hope. She had spent so much time feeling invisible that even a small act of kindness felt overwhelming. Later that morning, there was a gentle knock on the door. The man who had helped her the night before entered, carrying another small bag with necessities, clothes, toiletries, and other small items that could help her get through the day. He smiled softly, not in a way that demanded gratitude, but in a way that made her feel safe. She felt a rush of emotion, but managed a small, quiet thank you. He asked if she wanted to step outside for a moment. The city was waking up, and the streets looked different, in daylight less intimidating, but still overwhelming. She hesitated, worried about being seen or judged, but he assured her that he would stay close and make sure nothing bad happened. With a small nod, she agreed, stepping out cautiously, holding on to her small bag. As they walked, he asked about her dreams and what she wanted to do with her life. She had not thought about that in a long time. Life had been about surviving, about avoiding trouble, about hiding and staying unnoticed. Talking about dreams felt strange, almost embarrassing. But he listened patiently as she hesitated, then slowly shared small pieces of her heart. She spoke about school, about learning new things, about wanting to see the world in a way she had never been able to. Her voice was soft, and her words stumbled, but he nodded and encouraged her to continue. Listening carefully, he understood that these were not just words. They were the beginnings of a future she had been denied. The man helped her with simple things, finding a place to wash, a clean set of clothes, and a small breakfast at a nearby cafe. She felt awkward at first, unused to being guided without judgment. But slowly, the tension in her shoulders began to ease. Every small act of care built a little confidence. She realized that for the first time in a long time, someone was treating her as a person, not a problem. Throughout the day he stayed close, checking that she felt safe and comfortable. He did not push her into anything, but he gently encouraged her to take steps toward getting back to a normal life. She realized she could trust him, not blindly, but in a small, careful way that felt right. She noticed the difference between fear and hope, between despair and possibility. They returned to the hotel in the afternoon, and he suggested she take some time to rest. She lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how much her life had changed in just a few hours. A single night had turned her world upside down, not in a frightening way, in a way that opened doors she thought had been locked forever. She felt tears welling up, not from fear, but from relief. She had been seen, heard, and helped without strings attached. In the evening, he returned with a quiet smile. He spoke softly, explaining that he wanted to help her not just for a night, but in a way that could truly change her life. He talked about connecting her with people who could help her continue her education, who could support her emotional well-being, and who could help her rebuild confidence she had lost. She listened, feeling a mix of disbelief and cautious hope. This was not something she had ever expected, not in a million years. They spent the evening talking about small, practical things, school, routines, and ways to feel safe. He explained that she would not be rushed, that each step would be gradual, and that she had the right to make decisions about her own life. For the first time in years, she felt like she had control over her destiny, like someone truly believed in her potential. As the night deepened, she thought about the street, the cold, the fear, and the tears that had brought her to this point. She realized that what had seemed like the end of her world had been a turning point. She thought about the kindness of a stranger, the warmth of a safe place, and the possibility of a life that could be different. Sleep came slowly, but it was deep and undisturbed, filled with dreams of a future she had almost forgotten she could have. The next morning, she awoke with a sense of clarity she had not felt in years. The man had arranged for someone to help her continue her schooling, to guide her through the steps of reclaiming a life that had been disrupted. She felt nervous, but excited, a strange mix of anticipation and cautious optimism. She packed her small belongings, feeling the weight of the past, but also the lightness of hope. Together, they walked to the place where her education would continue. She felt a little shy, unsure how to interact with people she had never met before. But he stayed with her, offering encouragement and quiet support. The teachers and staff welcomed her warmly, noticing the strength and resilience in her eyes. She began to feel that she could belong, that she could have a future that was not dictated by fear or abandonment. Every small step was a victory. She learned to smile again, to speak without trembling, and to accept help without shame. She discovered that her intelligence, creativity, and kindness had not disappeared. They had only been hidden under layers of survival. Each day brought small successes, small moments of confidence, and the realization that life could be different if she allowed it. The man checked in frequently, ensuring that she felt supported, but he did not dominate her life. He allowed her to grow independently, giving guidance when needed, but stepping back to let her make decisions. She began to trust herself, to see her own value, and to believe that she could navigate challenges with support rather than fear. Months passed, and the changes became more visible. Her posture grew straighter, her voice stronger, and her eyes brighter. She had learned to face life with courage, even when it felt overwhelming. The experience of that night and the kindness that followed had planted seeds of confidence and hope that continued to grow. She felt a sense of belonging she had not known before, a feeling that life could be filled with opportunity rather than only hardship. Throughout this time, she never forgot the night she had cried on the street. That moment had been a turning point, a moment when a single act of kindness altered the course of her life. She carried that memory with her, not as a burden, but as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, compassion and human connection could change everything. By the end of the year, she had settled into a routine, balancing education, rest, and personal growth. The man who had helped her continued to support her quietly, allowing her to thrive without making her dependent. She realized that trust and care could exist in the world, that people could act without expectation, and that one person's kindness could ripple into a life-changing force. She had begun to rebuild, step by step, a life that had seemed impossible just months before. All because someone had stopped to see her, to hear her, and to believe in her potential. Days turned into weeks, and the girl began to adjust to a life that felt safer, warmer, and more supportive than she had ever known. Each day started with small steps: waking up in a soft bed, having breakfast without fear, and walking to classes that were structured to help her rebuild the confidence and knowledge she had lost. Every new face, every smile, every kind word added to her growing sense of security. She still carried the memories of the street, the cold, and the loneliness, but they began to fade into the background as she embraced the present. She learned to organize her days with guidance from the man who had helped her, and from teachers and mentors who encouraged her. Small tasks, such as packing her school bag, preparing for lessons, and setting goals, became milestones of independence. Each achievement, no matter how small, strengthened her belief that she could build a life for herself. She discovered skills she had never explored before: writing, painting, speaking in public, and even basic financial literacy. Each success brought a spark of pride that she had not felt in years. At first, she struggled with trust. Even with kindness around her, her past made it difficult to believe that people would not hurt or abandon her. She hesitated before speaking, waited for permission to act, and questioned every offer of help. But the consistency of care she received slowly taught her that trust could be earned without pain. The man who had rescued her never forced her to open up. He encouraged her to make her own decisions, to explore her own ideas, and to recognize her own worth. Through this, she realized that independence was not the same as being alone. It was learning to navigate the world with support and guidance. Education became her anchor. She rediscovered the joy of learning, the thrill of understanding new ideas, and the satisfaction of achieving small academic goals. She had been deprived of proper schooling for months, and catching up was challenging, but she found a rhythm. Teachers were patient, providing extra time and personalized guidance, and she soaked it all in like a sponge. Slowly, she began to feel capable again. She felt the old dreams long forgotten resurface. She wanted to continue learning, to explore opportunities she had once dismissed as impossible. Life outside school also changed. She began to experience simple joys she had not allowed herself to enjoy before. Walking in the park, laughing with a classmate, or having a warm meal became small victories. She learned that happiness could coexist with struggle, that life could offer more than survival, that small acts of kindness could create significant shifts in how she felt and viewed the world. The man continued to support her quietly, never interfering, never demanding gratitude, just offering steady guidance. He connected her with professionals who could help her with counseling, ensuring she had space to process the trauma she had endured. She learned to express her emotions safely, to confront the fear and anger that lingered, and to recognize the strength it had taken to survive. Each session helped her grow, slowly peeling away layers of despair and replacing them with hope. Financial stability was another step she needed to face. Though she had lived with little, managing even basic money matters was intimidating. The man helped her set up a small account, showed her how to budget, and taught her to value her work and earnings. It was more than practical knowledge, it was empowerment. She began to feel capable of making decisions for herself, taking responsibility for her own life, without being overwhelmed by fear or insecurity. Relationships became part of her new reality as well. She learned to interact with others, to form friendships, to rely on classmates for support, and to trust peers. She discovered that people could be kind and genuine, that not everyone would judge her past or her situation. Through these small social connections, she began to heal emotionally, understanding that companionship and support were not privileges, but fundamental human needs. As months went by, her self-image began to transform. She no longer saw herself as broken, invisible, or unworthy. She looked in the mirror and began to notice strength where there had been weakness, resilience where there had been fear, and potential where she had only seen loss. The scars of her past remained, but they became reminders of her endurance rather than her defeat. Each day was a chance to reinforce the idea that she was more than her hardships, The man who had first stopped for her on the street remained a steady presence, though he never sought recognition. He continued to offer guidance when necessary, connected her with opportunities, and celebrated her achievements quietly. He never overshadowed her progress, allowing her to grow into her own person. In this way, she learned that support did not mean dependence, that assistance could coexist with autonomy, and that success was sweeter when earned step by step. One day, as she prepared for an important exam, she realized how far she had come. She had gone from standing alone on a cold street, clutching a small bag, terrified of the future, to feeling capable, supported, and determined. The fear that had haunted her at night was replaced with focus and purpose. She understood that her journey was not over. She had gained tools, confidence, and hope that made the road ahead navigable. She began to dream bigger. The possibilities that once seemed unreachable now appeared within reach. She imagined a life where she could help others in need, share her story to inspire, and achieve personal goals that had once been unimaginable. She envisioned herself standing strong, independent, and capable, a person who could face challenges with courage and resilience. The life she once thought lost forever was now within her grasp. Every act of kindness, every lesson learned, every small achievement contributed to this transformation. She understood the power of human connection, the impact of consistent support, and the importance of believing in oneself. Her past no longer defined her. It informed her strength and resilience. She began to see the world as a place of opportunities rather than threats, a place where compassion could change a life as she continued to grow. She remained mindful of gratitude, not just for the man who had first helped her, but for every teacher, mentor, and friend who contributed to her recovery. She understood that life was interconnected, that small actions could have profound effects, and that giving back would be part of her journey. Her compassion for others grew as her confidence did, creating a cycle of support and care that would guide her future. By the end of this chapter of her life, she had established routines, goals, and relationships that grounded her. She was no longer the girl on the street, alone and crying. She was a young woman learning to embrace life, armed with lessons of trust, resilience, and hope. The night that had once seemed like the darkest moment of her life became the catalyst for her transformation. Every morning, every choice, and every action reinforced the knowledge that she had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. Years passed, and the girl who had once stood alone on a cold street grew into a strong, independent young woman. Her life had been transformed by a single act of kindness, but it was her determination and courage that carried her forward. Each day, she woke with a sense of purpose, carrying the lessons she had learned about trust, resilience, and human connection. She never forgot the fear and loneliness of that night, but she had learned to turn those memories into fuel for growth, rather than anchors of despair. Her education had become the foundation for her new life. She excelled in her studies, driven by a desire to prove to herself that her potential was greater than anyone had imagined. Teachers and mentors continued to support her, offering guidance when necessary but allowing her the space to make her own choices. She learned not only facts and skills, but also the importance of responsibility, patience, and perseverance. Every exam passed and every project completed reinforced her confidence and self-worth. She also discovered talents she had never explored before. Writing became an outlet for her emotions, a way to process the pain and hope intertwined in her journey. She painted, sketched, and engaged in creative projects that brought her joy and allowed her to express herself. Each small achievement built layers of confidence, teaching her that creativity and resilience could coexist, and that personal growth often came from embracing one's passions. Life was not without challenges. Moments of doubt and fear still appeared, reminders of the past she could not entirely erase, but she faced them with the tools she had gained: support from friends, guidance from mentors, and a belief in her own capabilities. She learned that strength was not the absence of fear, but the courage to move forward despite it. Each obstacle became an opportunity to reaffirm her resilience, to remind herself that she could navigate life on her own terms. Her relationships grew stronger and more meaningful. She formed deep bonds with classmates, friends, and mentors who valued her for who she was. She learned to trust again, to ask for help when needed, and to offer support in return. The kindness she had once received became a model for her own interactions, shaping her into a compassionate and empathetic person. She understood that human connection was essential, that helping others was both a privilege and a responsibility, and that the impact of one person's care could ripple through many lives. Financial independence became another milestone. She managed her resources wisely, balancing work, education, and personal growth. She learned the importance of budgeting, saving, and planning for the future. Understanding that control over her own life required not just emotional strength, but practical knowledge. Every financial decision she made reinforced her independence and ability to navigate the world with confidence. Throughout these years, she never forgot the man who had first stopped for her on the street. His quiet guidance and unwavering support had opened doors she had thought permanently closed. Yet she did not see him as a savior. She saw him as someone who had recognized her potential and given her the chance to believe in herself. She carried his example of compassion and respect forward, applying it in her own life by helping others in need, mentoring peers, and offering support without judgment. One day, she returned to the city streets where her life had almost ended. The memories of that cold, lonely night were vivid, but she felt no fear. Instead, she felt gratitude and reflection. She understood that her past, though painful, had taught her lessons she could not have learned elsewhere. She remembered the despair, the tears, and the sense of invisibility. But now she saw those moments as a prelude to growth. She realized that life had given her a second chance. She had embraced it fully. She began to share her story with others, not to seek attention, but to inspire and help those facing similar struggles. She spoke in schools, community centers, and small gatherings, encouraging young people who felt invisible, hopeless, or forgotten. Her words carried authenticity, the weight of someone who had lived through fear and emerged stronger. She became a symbol of resilience, showing that a single act of kindness, combined with determination, could alter the course of a life forever. Her career path emerged naturally from her experiences. She pursued work that allowed her to make a tangible difference in people's lives. Whether through mentoring, counseling, or advocacy, she focused on giving back the support she had once received. Each day, she remembered the impact of being seen and cared for, and she made it her mission to extend the same compassion to others. Her life had become a testament to the power of empathy, consistency, and opportunity. Family relationships also shifted over time. She sought reconciliation and healing where possible, not to erase the past, but to create healthier connections in the present. She approached interactions with understanding and patience, knowing that growth often required forgiveness and perspective. While some relationships remained distant, she accepted that and focused on building bonds that were nurturing and genuine. Her personal growth was mirrored by a deepening understanding of the world around her. She became aware of social inequalities, hardships faced by children and young people, and the importance of community support. Her own journey had shown her the fragility of life and the potential for transformation. She dedicated herself to initiatives that promoted education, safety, and opportunity for those in need, striving to create environments where hope and growth could flourish. Years later, she encountered the man again, not as a rescuer and rescued, but as two people connected by an act of humanity that had changed everything. They spoke quietly, sharing reflections on the journey that had followed that night. He expressed modest pride, not in himself, but in how she had taken the chance she was given and turned it into a life of purpose and meaning. She thanked him, not out of obligation, but from genuine recognition of the moment that had opened the door to her future. She looked back on her life with gratitude and awe. From the despair of that street corner to the accomplishments she now celebrated, the journey had been difficult, but transformative. Every tear, every fear, and every step forward had built the person she had become. She had learned that strength comes from facing adversity, that hope can thrive in unexpected places, and that one compassionate act can ripple across a lifetime. Her story became a source of inspiration, demonstrating that no matter how bleak a situation might seem, change is possible. She became an advocate for resilience, hope, and compassion, showing others that they too could transform their lives. She embodied the principle that adversity does not define a person's actions, courage, and the willingness to accept help can reshape a future entirely. In the end, she stood as a testament to human strength and connection. The girl who once cried on the street had grown into a woman who could cry tears of joy, stand firmly in her purpose, and extend a hand to those who needed it. Life had not been easy, and challenges remained. But she faced them with courage and knowledge that she was never truly alone. Through the kindness of one person and her own determination, she had created a life of meaning, impact, and hope, showing that even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest mornings. After years of rebuilding her life, the young woman found herself at a crossroads filled with both excitement and nervous anticipation. She had accomplished so much, yet she knew that growth was never a straight path. Every step she had taken had been a mixture of struggle, learning, and small victories, and now she faced a new chapter that required courage and self-belief. The journey that had begun on a cold, lonely street had transformed into a life filled with purpose. Yet she understood that the world still held challenges she would need to navigate. Her mornings began earlier than they used to, filled with plans, responsibilities, and goals that pushed her forward. She continued her education, determined to finish what she had started, and found ways to explore subjects she was passionate about. Reading, writing, and engaging in creative projects became daily routines. Each small accomplishment reminded her of her resilience and of the support that had made it possible. She felt pride in her independence, but she never forgot the kindness that had set her on this path. Beyond her studies, she began dedicating time to helping others. She volunteered at local community centers, providing guidance and mentorship to young people who faced challenges similar to her own past. Her experience made her relatable and compassionate, and she discovered that her story could inspire hope in ways that words alone could not. She learned to listen deeply, to understand the fears and dreams of those she helped, and to offer practical guidance without imposing her own expectations. Her personal life continued to grow in positive ways. She nurtured friendships that were authentic, building connections based on trust, mutual respect, and shared experiences. She learned to communicate openly, to express her emotions honestly, and to offer support without judgment. These relationships became anchors in her life, providing stability and encouragement while allowing her to flourish independently. She realized that connection with others was not a weakness, but a source of strength. Financial responsibility became another area of focus. She had grown from a girl who had clutched a small bag with everything she owned into a woman who could manage her resources wisely. She learned budgeting, saving, and planning for the future. Small jobs, scholarships, and careful management allowed her to support herself without relying on others. This independence reinforced her confidence and gave her the freedom to pursue her goals without fear of dependency or limitation. Despite all the progress, she faced moments of doubt and anxiety. Old fears occasionally surfaced, reminding her of the struggles she had endured. However, she had learned to recognize these feelings as temporary and manageable. She developed strategies to cope, journaling, reflecting, seeking guidance from mentors, and leaning on supportive friends. Each challenge reinforced her understanding that strength was not the absence of fear, but the ability to face it with courage and persistence. She also focused on her health, both physical and emotional. She exercised regularly, finding joy in simple activities like walking, stretching, and outdoor adventures. She paid attention to her nutrition and rest, understanding that caring for her body was essential for her overall well-being. Emotional health was just as important. She continued therapy and reflective practices, helping her process lingering emotions, maintain balance, and remain mindful of her personal growth. These practices became daily rituals, grounding her in a sense of stability and self-awareness. Her ambitions grew steadily. She dreamed of pursuing a career that would make a real difference in the lives of others. Combining her personal experience with her skills in education, she began to explore opportunities in social work, education, and community leadership. She wanted to create programs that supported young people in crisis, to be a guiding presence for those who felt invisible and unheard. Her vision was fueled by empathy, informed by her journey, and anchored in the desire to transform challenges into opportunities for others. One afternoon, she returned to the streets of her childhood, not as a fearful girl, but as a confident woman. The city that had once felt cold and unwelcoming now appeared alive with possibilities. She walked slowly, observing the people around her, remembering the struggles she had endured. Her heart felt heavy with gratitude and compassion. She understood that while the world could be harsh, it could also be profoundly kind. She carried that knowledge with her, determined to contribute to the kindness and support that had changed her life. The man who had first stopped for her remained, a quiet but steady presence in her life. He did not interfere, did not demand acknowledgement, but his consistent support had shaped much of her journey. They met occasionally, exchanging updates and reflections. He expressed modest pride in her achievements, not as a boast, but as recognition of her resilience and determination. She felt a deep sense of appreciation, knowing that his single act of kindness had created ripples that extended far beyond that night. Over time, she began to mentor younger individuals who were experiencing struggles similar to those she had faced. She shared her story carefully, focusing on empowerment, resilience, and the importance of seeking help. She emphasized that challenges do not define a person, but how they respond to them can shape their future. Her mentorship inspired hope, built confidence, and created a supportive network for those in need. She realized that her past, once a source of fear, had become a tool to help others navigate their own journeys. She also took time for personal reflection. She meditated, journaled, and spent quiet moments considering her values, goals, and progress. These practices allowed her to maintain perspective, appreciate her growth, and remain grounded despite the pressures of daily life. She celebrated her accomplishments, small and large, recognizing that every step forward was a victory over the past that had once held her captive. Her community began to notice her presence and contributions. Teachers, mentors, and peers admired her dedication, resilience, and compassion. They saw someone who had overcome adversity and used her experiences to make meaningful contributions. Her reputation was built not on wealth, fame, or status, but on authenticity, empathy, and consistent effort. She became a role model for others, showing that courage and determination could transform lives. Financial independence and professional growth continued to expand her opportunities. She secured scholarships, internships, and positions that aligned with her vision of helping others. Each success reinforced her belief that hard work combined with support and resilience could overcome almost any obstacle. She felt empowered to make choices that reflected her values and goals, creating a life of purpose and fulfillment as years passed. She looked back on the night she had cried on the street with a profound sense of gratitude. The fear, sadness, and despair she had experienced had been catalysts for growth, teaching her lessons she could never have learned otherwise. The act of kindness she had received had opened doors, but it was her courage, determination, and willingness to embrace opportunities that had carried her forward. She realized that while the past shaped her, it no longer defined her. Her journey became a living testament to human resilience, the transformative power of compassion, and the importance of opportunity. She continued to grow, contribute, and inspire, always mindful of the journey from fear and loneliness to strength and purpose. Her life had been changed forever, and she committed herself to ensuring that others would experience the same hope, guidance, and opportunity that had been extended to her. She had embraced a new beginning, one filled with promise, purpose, and the enduring belief that even the smallest act of kindness could alter the course of a life.